wherein crude oil is seen to be surging the most in almost a year, and that's after OPEC Plus announced a production cut that threatened to worsen the inflation and pushed the global central banks to tighten the monetary policy further. Now, treasuries fell and the dollar rose. Now, Brent crude hedged for the biggest gain since April 2022. But what are the impacts on the oil explorer and the OMC's company? Let's find out from Ashesha. Ashesha, which all stocks are in focus on the back of this news flow?
Well, yes, absolutely. Brent crude prices have risen nearly 15% from their March lows. In fact, after falling below that $75 per barrel mark, they've started rising yet again. In fact, they're now at about $83, $85 per barrel mark. Why is that? Saudi Arabia and some other oil-producing OPEC Plus countries have announced output cut, and that is the primary reason oil prices have started rising yet again in the international market. Let's now understand the kind of impact surge in global crude oil prices has on individual sectors and companies back home in India. First up, we will talk about oil explorers, the likes of ONGC, Oil India, Vedanta and HOEC. These companies have positive impact, and that is because higher crude oil prices means higher earnings for these companies. In fact, every $5 per barrel change in crude oil prices increases EPS of ONGC by about 7%, and it increases EPS of Oil India by about 12%. Let's move on to oil marketing companies, the likes of HPCL, BPCL, Reliance Industries, MRPL and Chennai Petroleum. For these kind of companies, the impact is rather mixed, and that is because marketing margins reduce as crude oil prices gain. Meanwhile, inventory gains is what these companies register because of surge in crude oil prices, and hence these companies register mixed moves on account of the change in crude oil prices. In fact, every $1 per barrel change in increase in crude oil prices impacts petrol and diesel margins of these companies by about 40 paise per litre. In fact, there are some other sectors which are negatively impacted. These are the sectors which use crude oil as their major raw material. These includes the likes of paint companies, we have tire companies, aviation or airline companies, cement companies, tire companies and several other lubricant manufacturers as well. Apart from this, on the overall economy as well, increase in crude oil prices has a negative impact, and that is because India imports close to about 85% of its crude oil requirements, and every $10 per barrel increase in average prices of Indian crude oil basket could increase current account deficit by about 14 to 15 billion US dollars, which as a percentage of GDP translates to about 0.4%. So this is the kind of far-fetched impact increase in crude oil prices has on the Indian economy, oil explorers, oil marketing companies and other sectors which use crude oil as their raw material.
Well, thank you so much, Ashesha, for that, which all stocks were in focus on the back of the surprise cut that has been announced by the OPEC Plus that actually took the crude oil prices high by around 8%. But could this mean that Brent crude prices could touch $100 per barrel soon? Now, Vandana Hari, who is the founder and the CEO at Vandana Insights, says that the move could be to preempt a demand slump, but she doesn't believe that it will push the prices to $100 per barrel mark. Let's listen into her take.
OPEC Plus had always been signaling, especially since late last year, that they want to be preemptive, proactive, in case oil demand doesn't pan out the way that had been expected through 2023. But I think the latest move is especially shocking for the markets, because I think it is a stretch even assuming their preemptive and proactive stance. Because, you know, really the question is, what did they see that the rest of the market hasn't? So yes, there was the banking crisis, crude crashed to 15-month lows, you know, Brent below $73 several days ago. But it had, you know, as the banking crisis fears abated, it had crept back up towards $80 a barrel, which is, you know, back in the sort of comfort zone of OPEC Plus. So
okay, and not just the crude, even the natural gas is